There's a lot of improvements that you're going to see over the old terminal. The old terminal is 16,000 square feet. You're going to see a 52,000 square foot facility in the new terminal. Some of the benefits of the new terminal, of course, is not just ADA accessible terminal, but it's also an ADA friendly terminal. We have additional parking with 93 spaces added. Maybe one of the biggest ones that everybody's going to really like is passenger boarding bridges. Are installed on the new terminal. So no more walking outside in the rain and snow.
That's Mike Parks, Columbia Regional Airport here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri yesterday. We love everything that is happening with this airport, with the terminal, the new terminal, which we had to do to be in ADA compliance and to get with it. I think, and I'll speak on behalf of Stephanie, we respectfully disagree with Mr. Mike Parks, though, on the aspect that everybody's going to love that we'll have bridges to get onto the airplanes, because Stephanie and I have this weird tick about something about walking on the tarmac onto an airplane.
It makes you feel like a baller. Yeah, just you feel very important. You know, if only they would like roll down the red carpet and when you exited, you came down the stairs like the president. That would be pretty cool.
Some ropes along the side, maybe some people off to the side taking photographs. I mean, that's that right. Vibe. And we are kidding. We do like the fact that there are going to be bridges going onto the airplanes. But the other way was kind of okay, cool, you know, because you got your carry-on strapped over the shoulder and you got your suitcase.
Brandon's pretending he's Patrick Mahomes. He's got some shades and a suit and all stuff.
And you got a sense of purpose and importance. You get the vibe, right, Marsh? Yeah. Seriously, this is an incredible facility, and it's not just like somebody got a new dress or something for prom. It's like somebody got a dress after getting a college degree and then a doctorate degree and getting a high-paying job that's beneficial to the family. It's incredible.
Well, yeah, we have our airport is like an adult. We have like an adult airport that looks like an actual airport. Before I would tell people, I was like, yeah, it's like kind of like a mobile home. Essentially,
it's a trailer in the field in the middle of Ashland, Missouri.
And I think it was a mobile building type thing. And it just, there was one bathroom, no food. And it was kind of laugh. And we all could have a good laugh because actually the service provided there is really good. I haven't flown out of any other airport, and we've all heard horror stories. You hear that in other airports too. But everyone has had travel woes, whether you're flying out of Columbia or St. Louis. But I will say I haven't flown out of anywhere else in the last 10 years. It gets me to everywhere I need to go. I've had a couple hiccups here, but I would say 95% of the time, no problems whatsoever.
One night, Fred Perry, who has Inside Columbia Magazine publisher emeritus, we got stranded there together one night. Not together like in that, but that was quite a story. Houseworth, big takeaways?
I think the two things, I agree with Stephanie on it being big because the current terminal was built in 1968. We have had numerous presidents that have come through there. I mean, we could go down the line, the dignitaries. Bob Hope, I remember him coming down. It was 100 degrees. Bob Hope had to walk out on the tarmac. He didn't have any place to go with a passenger boarding thing. So I think my two biggest takeaways are, number one, the crowd. It superseded anything anybody could have expected. I'm going with hundreds, and I actually asked Mr. Treese about that, and Barbara Buffalo, and it's just hard to tell because I look behind me and there were people literally lined up out the door, standing in the corners as well. So it's the biggest crowd the FAA has ever seen for any event like that, according to Mayor Buffalo. But the other thing that stuck out to me is we talk a lot, especially in Columbia business leaders and stuff, but there was a huge presence of Ashland and Jefferson City there yesterday. Stephanie caught that right away. A lot of Ashland people. Kyle Michael was there, the city administrator, and I noticed a lot of executives from Jeff City companies. There were central bank people there. So this is truly a regional airport, and I think that's very important to note.
The chief of police from Ashland.
Yes.
Gabe Edwards, he was there. Yeah. Carrie Turgeon, mayor of Jefferson City, was there. I thought it was cool seeing people like former mayor Bob McDavid there. Brian Treese was there. Former city manager John Glasscock. Carrie Turgeon, obviously, was there. Cherie Tolson-Reich, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler, Governor Mike Parson. I think he said a couple of important things, and I'll take the knocks, but I'm a big believer on a sense of arrival and your first impression of something. You have one chance to make a first impression.
You look at all the new businesses that have moved into the Columbia area and how important they are and the expansions you're seeing. And that's going to continue to grow. And I think, again, you're going to find it's going to be a much larger destination for people not only in the state of Missouri, but other states.
You have 30,000 people a year that go to the Missouri State Prison. Carrie Turgeon says they're from all over the world. I mean, John, that the Missouri State Prison is kind of a bigger deal than I think what us locals think. This has some pretty good recognition nationwide.
Well, and another person that was also there was Moon Choi, and I heard kind of in talking with other people, they feel like there's going to be a lot of synergy between that new Next Gen Center and all of the healthcare initiatives at University of Missouri and the airport, and that's really going to facilitate a lot going on at that facility.
Yeah, there's no doubt, and I touched on that a little bit, Stephanie, in the 603 newscast on there, because Dr. Choi obviously wants to see that happen, basically a medical destination. Brandon, there's one other person you hit it on the head. There were probably other people we didn't see, but one person we have to add to that list is Ray Beck. And Ray Beck, when he was city manager, his nickname, because I covered him, his nickname in town was King Beck. I mean, basically, Ray Beck ran the city of Columbia. But if you heard what they said yesterday he obtained that land without using eminent domain in 1963. And I can tell you, and I know some of our listeners will remember it, there were people in town, especially in tight budget times, that would call into the radio station here and say, nobody's going to fly out of that airport. You're wasting money. Ray Beck fought to keep, because otherwise that airport could have closed. People thought it was a waste of money. They wanted it shut down, and Ray Beck said no. And quite frankly, if it wasn't for Ray Beck, and to a certain extent Darwin Heinman, but I would say Ray Beck, we wouldn't be where we are today. That airport would be gone.
So what questions did we actually get answered yesterday? Because after we posted our pictures, I know the listeners had a lot of questions. People are really concerned about having to pay for parking. Are we going to have to pay for parking? I know they said they're doing additional parking. I didn't hear any suggestion that we would have to pay for parking.
No pay.
But I also didn't hear any announcements about additional flights.
What we learned yesterday, not additional flights, although Charlotte's going to be first in line because that's been promised. That was affected by the pandemic. I know we talked about Phoenix, some other places. All those are points. The pandemic is affecting it, but no additional flights at this time. The two big things we learned yesterday are, number one, the new terminal, the first flights will be October the 26th. It'll be next Wednesday. And Brandon and I were both asked this question, and I had to follow up on it. People are asking what is going to happen to the current COU terminal. They're going to use that for car rental counters. They're going to use it for public safety. We had a caller yesterday to Randy Tobler that wanted to put the homeless shelter, by the way, in the current terminal.
No.
And obviously, and that wouldn't work for a variety of, first of all, there's no services out there, and I couldn't tell if he's being facetious. That's not going to happen.
And we've done all this work to create a beautiful sense of arrival to all of these people that come from all across the country and the world. No,
it's not.
You don't put them out at the bus station in downtown Columbia, the gem of Columbia. Let's not repeat that mistake again. I did talk to Mike Parks, director of the year, because I'm always interested in that flight to Denver, which we had for like 3 minutes in March of 2020. Remember what else happened in March of 2020?
Pandemic.
Yeah,
that was
which to me,
he whispered as if it was a bad word.
Oh, it was so frustrating because that flight was going to take off.
Yep.
It was a big deal
from here, and it was
United.
Important. Me being selfish, it was important to me. It's easier for me to get out west to see my grandkids in Idaho, but I did talk to them. And Stacy Button with and I can't remember exactly.
Ready.
Yeah, Ready. The meetings that go into this stuff behind the scenes, the years that it takes. I did talk with Mike Parks. They're constantly working on trying to get new flights, but Denver, Phoenix, and Charlotte have been kind of the ones that have been on the radar trying to get points. So we have points north and south, but we don't have any destinations as far as
that's right.
To the left and to the right of the country geographically on a map. But this stuff mattered. 366 days ago, you and I were at Next Gen when
That's
they cut the ribbon for that. When Senator Roy Blunt get 366 days. What's happened in the past year there, they have doubled the number of researchers, and those researchers brought in millions of dollars in research money. So that's why these things like the airport, it's important. And just for you want to go see family, you don't have to go to St. Louis. You don't have to go to Kansas City. And in a lot of situations, I have found them serious. Check it out. Do your math one time. Do your math sometime on this. It is financially feasible to fly out of Columbia Regional Airport. I also got to be honest, until recently. And that's not Columbia Regional Airport's fault. Prices, as a matter of fact, I'm paying 50% less to fly out of St. Louis at Thanksgiving to see my grandkids. But usually I do fly out of Columbia. Hopefully this is temporary.
But the opportunities do. I mean, I'm surprised sometimes. I just went to Las Vegas. I left my home in the morning. It was quite early. I took the 5 a.m. flight, but I landed at 9 a.m. Vegas time. So to wake up in your own bed and to have and to be in Vegas by the morning, I mean, it provides significant business opportunities to people right here in Mid-Mo.
And comfort as well. In the one other thing Dr. Choi said that don't think it got any media attention, but he said it, and I think he went off the cuff when he said it, but I thought it was significant. He announced yesterday, Brandon, I'm sure you heard it as well. I about fell out of my chair because it's a big deal. He said they are going to hire 500 new faculty members at Mizzou in the next 5 years. That has not been reported before. That's a big deal.
And the other thing that was announced yesterday, the Mizzou Marching Band will be there for the arrival of every single flight, paying you. No, they're not going to do that. 874-9390. Kevin, what is on your mind?
Well, that was me yesterday that said put the homeless shelter out there, and there was some sarcasm there, of course.
Well, thank you for fact checking. We appreciate it.
Instead of them being on every street corner with their little signs, they could be part of the welcoming committee where you have a sign with the person's name as they come in. And as far as services, I mean, as long as they're doing something like maybe washing windows to my car and stuff like they do in other homeless areas, not in Columbia, which would be kind of nice. I always have a dirty windshield. But in other places, they actually clean your windows for the tip so that they're actually providing a service. In New York City, they hold the bathroom door open for you so you don't have to touch it. Because, that's nasty.
I would tip for that.
But here in Columbia, they just sit there and don't do anything.
Kevin, I like your idea. Put them out there and put them to work. And thank you very much for listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning. I'm Branden Rathert, Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, Brian Houseworth, producer Hannah is here. So, put them to work out there. Like a pilot doesn't show up and you get the homeless. Hey, can you fly the plane? The pilot didn't show up. And I will say this. I did see on Old 63 and Broadway the other day, right there at Stevens Lake Park, I did see a panhandler picking trash up out of the street. I kind of thought that was interesting. Coming up, Daily DC Rundown. What's underneath the circus tent this morning, Stephanie?
Well, Biden saying his latest action, there was no politics involved at all. You believe him?
What is your response to Republicans who say you are only doing this SPR release to help Democrats in the midterms?
It's not politically motivated at all. It's motivated to make sure that I continue to push on what I've been pushing on.
It's not politically motivated at all. Do you get angry? What is your reaction to that as you hear that? Do you get angry or do you laugh? It's not politically motivated at all.
What midterms?
19 days from now, that's how we walk into the daily D.C. rundown, the circus tent that is Washington, D.C. with Stephanie Bell.
So yesterday, Joe Biden did announce he's going to release 15 million barrels of the strategic oil reserve, which he already agreed to a long time ago, but he's giving himself a pat on the back and telling everyone that it has nothing to do with the timing of the election.
All while eating an ice cream cone. Yep.
He's gonna have a friend today. He's gonna be eating an ice cream cone with a friend today.
Have you heard this whole visit? This is bizarre.
This is bizarre. So he is actually going to campaign for Fetterman today. And we talked a little bit about Fetterman's capabilities,
Yes.
capacity. And most candidates on the Democrat side are shunning a visit from Joe right before the midterms. And Fetterman's like, come on down.
And here's the thing. The purpose, this is not just a campaign visit, but the White House says Joe Biden is going to campaign with Fetterman because Biden, I'm not kidding, wants to prove that Fetterman is A-OK and sound of mind. Even in the White House the other day, Karine Jean-Pierre said, oh, no, Biden thinks Fetterman's got all his mental capacities about him.
The president has found him to be just as capable as who's just as capable as always.
And listen, the guy had a stroke. That's not funny. It is still affecting him by all accounts.
But maybe he's smarter than we think he is because, when you want to look good, right, put like an ugly person next to you and you're like, well, I look good compared to that person. And so Fetterman's like, you know what? I'm going to look smart next to Joe Biden. Maybe he's smarter than we give him credit for.
Well, it's an old socializing ploy. If you're out, at a bar or something and you see a group of women, don't always go to the hottest chick in the bunch.
Okay.
You start with somebody lower on the totem pole so you look like a good guy. Don't behave that way anymore.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, well, we've talked before. We end up talking about dead people a lot. Yeah. And one of the conversations and something that I've learned is that you can mail packages of ashes and bodies, and there's lots of rules around that. But anyway, this didn't bring me any, and everyone's like, yeah, you just mail Grandpa through the mail. Apparently the United Parcel Service, the brown truck folks, are getting a civil penalty of $5.3 million because they have disposed of hazardous waste improperly. And it happens a lot when packages containing certain hazardous waste materials are damaged. And I'm thinking, didn't we just hear from folks that you can mail Grandpa and everything's cool? And but packages of hazardous waste apparently
if they get a package and they can't ever find the recipient or who sent it, they just toss it out in the backyard.
I don't think so, but I think they've had some issues with exactly how some of those things are being disposed. They've also do like day-to-day maintenance, which involves hazardous waste, and apparently we're also improperly disposing of that. So they've been hit with a big fine, and they're like on probation to clean up their act.
Wake Up Mid-Missouri is very familiar with being on probation when it comes to our video feed. Are we good this morning, though, Producer Hannah?
Knock on wood, yes.
We are good. You can watch the show on our YouTube feed, Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
I have to squeeze this in before Feel Good Friday because I'm not going to say this tomorrow, but apparently our top U.S. military commander is now on a ballistic missile submarine or spent a little bit of time given all of the tension, and it's giving me, I said last week, it's all making me very nervous.
Wow, that's an interesting story. That's your daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. Coming up 5 minutes, there are big changes coming to the 6370 interchange, most traveled intersection in all of mid-Missouri. Some insight from Steve Spellman. He's got a great piece on ComoBuz.com. He's here 5 minutes from now.
Agriculture is the biggest in Cole County and in the state of Missouri. We're an agricultural state. So we're constantly working on our roads, improving our roads. Tanner Bridge Road.
That's presiding Cole County Commissioner Sam Bushman. Last night there was kind of a candidates forum put on by the Jefferson City News Tribune. He is the current presiding commissioner and up for re-election. 19 days from now is the election. And then Carla Steck was asked. So that's Sam Bushman. He's saying here's one of our biggest avenues of opportunity. It's agriculture. Talks about how important it is. And there's differing numbers out there, but I think we're approaching it's $1 billion the ag industry is to the state of Missouri, and typically it's top 1 or 2. It's important. So he's saying there's some ways that we can capitalize on some more opportunities there. Carla Steck was asked about one of the first things that she would do if she became presiding commissioner in Cole County.
Very simply, with how meetings are run currently with the county commissioners, the idea of our First Amendment has been pushed to the side.
That's Carla Steck. By the way, Gary Castor from Jefferson City News Tribune, great job. And still, John, pretty much on track. Sam Bushman, this should be an easy election night for Sam Bushman 19 days from now. Yeah, and Carla Steck, I'm sure I've had no personal dealings with her, but her big thing is art, and I think more than once she has kind of alluded to that's, we need more arts in the county. I just don't think that's something that would resonate with anybody. I don't think that's an important thing for us right now. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That is Mr. John Marsh. Stephanie Bell is here.
Good morning.
There's producer Hannah.
Good morning.
Brian Hounsworth is also here. My name is Branden Rathert. Glad you could be here. 874-9390. 874-9390. There's another big thing happening, and this has been, I think it was less than 20 years ago, the interchange 7063. MoDOT tells us well over 20,000 vehicles a year go through at least the 63 aspect of it. One of the busiest intersections in all of, if not the busiest intersection in mid-Missouri, 7063. And if you're in Columbia, or let's say you're coming from Jefferson City, you're coming from Ashland, and you need to get onto 70, especially westbound 70, it's not fun. And we just improved this stuff less than 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's terrible. I had kids who played way out on Cosmo. It's like an hour from Ashland to get all the way over west. It's terrible.
It can be a trip. Changes are coming. MoDOT's going to be doing some stuff. I want to bring in Steve Spellman. You hear him from time to time here as a guest co-host on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Does a lot of writing for the Missourian and has a great piece in ComoBuz.com. Steve, we welcome you in. The piece in ComoBuz.com is talking about the 6370 interchange. Kind of bottom line, what some potential changes are that we might be seeing there in the coming years.
Yeah, Brandon and Stephanie and folks, so thanks for having me on this morning. They're finally looking at, they've got some funds, federal funds, and then some new gas tax monies, and looking at I-70 at large, but there ain't no money for what all they want to do. You kind of boil it down to this I-70-63 interchange, which is the biggest pinch point in town and really the biggest intersection in mid-Missouri. There's kind of three options that MoDOT was presenting here recently. I saw a forum on this. There have been some public forums as well. Kind of three options. One is glorified turn lanes to the existing thing, and that's just not worth messing with. There's two other alternatives, and what they solve basically is, there's several different turns there, and it's all snarled up either way you want to go. Basically, coming in from any four directions, turning left or right. But the main thing is, and I don't want to radio so I don't have a map, but like if you're coming from, say, Ashland, Jeff City from the south and wanting to turn left toward like the mall in Boonville, Kansas City, that's the number one turn, basically. There's the most traffic on that. And right now you got to go through like 3 lights and a left turn lane. It's one lane for a major highway interchange. Yeah. And then the other direction that they say is the second busiest is kind of going the other way, kind of coming from, Boonville and the mall and taking a right to the south toward kind of Ashland, Jeff City. And really, either one of these alternatives make a solution for that. A proper turn lane kind of going from the mall, Boonville, going right. So basically an exit ramp where you don't have to stop like any other exit in the world. And then there's a couple options with basically making kind of either Sky Bridge or kind of Cloverleaf turn for people coming from the Jeff City, Ashland area, kind of turn left toward the mall in Boonville. So they say it'd take about 17% of the traffic out of there. Doesn't sound like a lot, but rush hour, that could really clean it out. And then there's some other improvements kind of to the local interchanges, kind of redoing and adding some stuff on like the Clark Lane end on the north side. And then that south side, it looks like kind of consolidating that into like one traffic light at least, where it kind of comes out of coming from Sam's or Keene Street, and it pumps traffic that's coming from like Jeff City to, turning right to St. Louis and all that stuff.
All right. Our guest is Steve Spellman, great piece, ComoBuz.com, talking about the 6370 interchange and some of the changes we'll be seeing here in the coming years.
No, it's an archaic deal. It's just been added, improved piecemeal, glorified turn lanes. There's those flyover lanes that were, 20, 30 years ago. Like if you're coming from, Jeff City to Moberly, just passing through, you don't have to stop. But, yeah, really to turn any direction on either one of those, major highways, the biggest interchange in the state, it's a big deal. One other thing, so there's some options about, basically there's that huge mega bridge, basically, that's an overpass of I-70 there that, snarled up in the traffic lights. They're going to uproot that and do something or other, one way or the other. And there's two options there I saw from MoDOT. One is put in a diverging diamond, which there's one by the mall, by Stadium. There's some other places throughout the state. So some people like that, some don't. It can move traffic a little better. And another is to kind of take all the kind of left turns in there and angle them into kind of I don't have a picture here, but kind of a diagonal one traffic light intersection. So basically redoing that thing so there isn't, like three traffic lights a person's got to go through to get any different direction there.
Is the diagonal one traffic light thing the stuff they have in St. Louis where it really feels like you're driving on the wrong side of the road? I hate that.
It's a little different. I think I went through something like that. We went up to actually a Show Me Institute event a few weeks ago. So Jim Bukowski and some good folks there. But over by past Forest Park, the zoo, by Barnes Jewish Hospital, there's something like that. But yeah, basically, if you're coming in the intersection and taking a left, it angles you kind of into this, X-shaped diagonal thing. I think there's one in Springfield. I think I've seen something like that.
Well, and the other
again, it's kind of like
the other thing that I have concerns about though is when whatever they decide to do, what happens for the years of the project? Like it's only going to be worse when they're actually improving it. I think. Do they have a plan?
I don't know about the construction dealing with that pain, other than tell locals, hey, take another route, take Stadium around there.
Well, let me get your opinion on this, because we had been in process for about a year, had been working on trying to do something, not to change the actual road through 6370, but some kind of project where we can enhance the look on the entryway here into the heart of mid-Missouri. But was told, hey, MoDOT's got to be doing something there in the next few years, so it's not doable. Here's what I think we should just blow the whole thing up and start over.
So ideally, it'd be probably something like a modern Cloverleaf, over Marshall Junction, intersection of 65, like every other major interchange of two superhighways. One, there ain't no money to do so. And two, if you notice, there's a lot of businesses that built up there. The Bob Evans Steak and Shake. Yeah. There's a couple hotels, a gas station, etc. And displacing those businesses is just even more prohibitively, expensive and a mess.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of elbow room there at 6370. You look, the hotels and the restaurants, and of course the homeless folks. They've got a little town down in one of those. There is no elbow room in there.
Off in the woods. Yeah.
Steve Spellman, great piece, ComoBuz.com. Also going to be the featured speaker tomorrow at the Columbia Pachyderm meeting. What are you covering tomorrow at the Nooner?
Yeah, these constitutional amendments are on the ballot. A lot of attention on the candidates and so forth. You guys on the station have been covering that really great. The constitutional amendments, some people know about the marijuana thing, but there's 5 questions on there. And I just saw where there's not a lot of information out there. I mean, on this or that, but I asked around the concerned citizens voters, like, oh, I didn't even know about those.
Yep, there's
so I
the
can put some
5.
notes together. And
amendment.
We'll be talking at the Columbia Pachyderm Club. That's noon tomorrow at Dickey's Barbecue on Forum.
And that's right there at Forum and Stadium. And there's Amendment 5, which deals with National Guard. Amendment 1.
Right.
Let me ask you this, because we got to go. And I don't need an explanation. I don't need anything. I just need an answer. 19 days from now, when you walk into the voting booth, how are you voting on Amendment 3?
I'm a no on the marijuana one.
No. All right. Thank you. Because a lot of people value your opinion. There's still a lot of people, I think, undecided on that. Steve Spellman, he writes a lot for The Missourian. You hear him occasionally as a guest co-host here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And now a great piece, ComoBuz.com, regarding the 6370 interchange. Thanks for your time this morning.
Take care, y'all.
All right. Mike Pence doing an event last night, Young America's Foundation at Georgetown University. He was, and I want to get both of your thoughts, John, Steph. He was asked this question.
Mr. Pence, if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee for president in 2024, will you vote for him?
So he was asked, if Trump is the nominee in 2024, will you vote for him? John, how do you think Mike Pence answered the question? Right? Not an easy call. Yeah. Steph? Okay, so you're saying yes, I don't know, maybe no. You've got all your bases covered. Steph, how about you?
If he's the nominee, the only option is don't vote or vote for a Democrat. And I think Mike Pence would say yes. Now, if the question was, will you campaign for him or help him, I think the answer is for sure no. All right, so we've got all of our bases covered. How did he answer the question? We'll cover that coming up 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up.
economy is strong as hell. The internals are. Inflation is worldwide.
That's Joe Biden. Our economy is strong as hell, he said, while licking a mint chocolate chip ice cream cone. I think we do know that as a point of fact now, is mint chocolate chip in a waffle cone, licking that ice cream cone. Our economy is strong as hell while eating, as John Marsh pointed out, a $9 ice cream cone. I wonder what Eric Schmitt thinks about those statements, our Attorney General and U.S. Senate candidate. We'll find out. He's here this morning, coming up at 8:10. Join us. Make sure you let your friends know. Maybe you have some friends that are not decided in this election, which is, I think, kind of odd at this point. I think everybody pretty much knows how this election is going to turn out, but it doesn't mean that we don't show up. And I'll go back. Here's a great story, and this happened here in mid-Missouri, April 2022. City council race in Columbia, long time incumbent, in a tie with a challenger, Roy Lovelady, Carl Scala. Every vote matters.
If one more person would have voted, it wouldn't have been a tie. There's someone out there who's like close to one of them.
Somebody's not in the family will anymore.
And just that day, something came up or whatever, or they decided, you know what? The incumbent's got it in the bag. I don't need to vote.
So don't think that. There's an actual lesson from mid-Missouri on that's why we go to the polls and vote. I would highly encourage you to check your ID. Make sure that it is not expired, because that's another big thing. Brianna Lennon, Boone County Clerk. I don't know how we are in other counties like Callaway, Montauk, or Cole, but I know they are looking specifically needing Republican election officials and volunteers. They got to have it, and Brianna just can't get it. And if you've been interested and you have the ability, if you're retired or you have the ability to take a day out of your schedule and you're worried about election integrity, this is for you. Contact the Boone County office, Boone County Clerk's office, Brianna Lennon, if you want to help. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah Bryan Houseworth, John Marsh. I am Branden Rathert. Former Vice President Mike Pence doing an event yesterday, Young America's Foundation. This was at Georgetown University. Here was the question.
Mr. Pence, if Donald Trump is the Republican nominee for president in 2024, will you vote for him?
All right. Are you going to vote for him? Mr. Pence. Marsh, you're kind of like, I don't know what the answer is. You don't know how he's going to answer. Steph?
I think he's going to say yes.
All right. Let's hear what he had to say. First, the uncomfortable pause.
Well, there might be somebody else I'd prefer more.
That wasn't the question.
You're exactly right. Wasn't the question. And is he or as Marsh said, it's a political dance around. And I think obviously an allusion to, well, maybe not the guy, maybe it's not Trump.
What I can tell you is I have every confidence that the Republican Party is going to sort out leadership. All my focus has been on the midterm elections, and it'll stay that way for the next 20 days. But
it's a political dance around. We're going to put the best candidate. That wasn't the question. The question was,
would you vote for Trump if he was the nominee? I'm surprised we haven't heard from Trump already, like just bashing Mike Pence for that pause and that answer.
After that, we'll be thinking about the future, ours and the nation's, and I'll keep you posted, okay?
Mike Pence on his take whether or not he would vote for Trump. And he was trying to do this. I don't know how I'm going to vote. Hey, we are coming up big homecoming weekend. We are so excited. Marsh going to be hanging out with us. Homecoming event. We're doing the Tiger Tailgate 2 hours before the game. Is what you want to do. Go to our websites, 939theeagle.com and KWOS.com if you want to take part in our free Tiger Tailgates. Put on by Buffalo Wild Wings, Culligan of Mid-Missouri, Bud Light, High Noon, Hard Seltzers. So in Jefferson City, you can go to Big O Tires. In Mexico, you can go to Graff & Sons. In Columbia, also Big O Tires. And what you do, you go and just ask for your free passes. They give them to you. You come join us a couple of hours prior to the game, and we feed you, and we drink you, and then it's game time. By the way, Stephanie and I are going to be downtown emceeing the parade. Exact location? Downtown. Somebody said.
No, we're on Broadway, and
Okay.
I put a map up. We can put it up on the Facebook page. They do have a map, and there's a stage on Broadway. Last year, we were really close to City Hall, but you'll see like a big raised platform. We'll have some judges and us.
Way to throw Stephanie right under the bus.
She posted it on her Twitter handle, didn't she? At Stephanie S. Bell.
But
on
like, if
Twitter.
you ask me the street names,
Did you put it on your Twitter?
We're on the corner of Broadway and 9th-ish, between 9th and 8th.
So if people have been asking me, you're emceeing the parade, guys. You and Steph want to come by and meet Steph. It's going to be 80 degrees. She's wearing a brand new $80 cardigan sweater.
Let's take a selfie.
They said, Brandon, where exactly you guys going to be? Downtown. Exactly.
They're going to lock off every way that you can vote. This is the end of democracy in America. This is the beginning of the South Africa strategy. It's old school American. It's Jim Crow.
Sort of reminiscent of Jim Crow era tactics that are designed to have a chilling effect.
It's voter suppression. It's the new Jim Crow.
The president himself said these feel like Jim Crow laws. What's your take on whether it is or isn't?
I say it is. I mean, I did grow up under Jim Crow laws.
This, guys, this is it. I said it yesterday. This is the GOP strategy.
This is it.
You can't beat the Democratic candidates, block their voters.
This is it, for real. This is Jim Crow. This is voter suppression laws in Georgia. Remember, that was 1 year ago. These new laws in Georgia, which enhanced voter security. We've done some same things here in the state of Missouri. Voter suppression, Jim Crow laws. Guess what's happened a year later? Voting numbers in Georgia, they're up.
At record numbers. And across everywhere. Other states, Missouri did a little bit of changing to their election laws. Other states have done the same. And yeah, the headlines are, 3 weeks from the election day, pre-election voting is high. Early vote count surpasses ordinary midterm turnout. I mean, we're going to have more voting than we've ever had.
And check this. I think the number, and I will say the Dobbs decision, I think it had a lot to do with that. With people voting. I believe that, as the Wall Street Journal will attest to here in our next story.
I think gas prices have a lot to do with people voting.
Absolutely. The state saw a 75% increase from the second day during the 2018 midterms, but I think this is even more telling. It is up over the second day of early voting in the 2020 presidential election. In the presidential election, early voting is up in Georgia over what it was then. And thank goodness, it's the economy that's winning out on issues and why voters are going to the polls. It is. In this summer, I don't think that was quite the, we got, and yours truly included, got a little worried because Democrats got a lot of momentum, a lot of new people registering to vote, registering as Democrats because of the Dobbs decision. And I'm hoping that we are now at that spot where people are like, even the Democrats that want to do, in Illinois, they're doing, like food trucks, but abortions. They're driving around in food trucks handing out abortions, or they want to, or they will. And they'll do it along the... And that's a true story, by the way.
It is a true story.
We are not exaggerating, not a conservative talking point. It is a fact. And it looks like, thank goodness, tide is going back to where we were pre-Dobbs decision.
We think so. And I also saw this other article in there basically, and you get this from Democrats a lot. They're like, can you believe how much money people are spending in elections? And like, it costs money to run advertisements and to run a campaign and to pay people to go knock on people's doors. It's the same people, who are like, well, the turnout might be low. Spending all of this money is educating people about who's on the ballot and is driving people to the polls. So it's interesting because you see people say, well, there's voter suppression and we need more people to turn out. But wait, we can't spend any money to tell people about the election. It's ridiculous.
Squirrel. It's like, what's the next thing we can jump on here? And you look even here in mid-Missouri, for example, campaign finance reports are out. And you look on a local level, and let's take Boone County as an example. Some of these offices, you look at the Democrats, and obviously with the I always want to call it the mule skinners, Boone County mule skinners, and the money they donate to local Democrat candidates, and they are donating a lot of money to all these races, and we're not seeing the same support with conservatives. I don't know if they get the same amount of money raised with the pachyderm clubs, whether it's Boone County Pachyderm, Boone County GOP, or Columbia Pachyderm. Welcome. We're going to get into what the Wall Street Journal is saying about the midterms. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you. Good event yesterday at the Columbia Regional Airport. Huge turnout.
Highlight. Sure. What would you say is the highlight of what the terminal means for people here in Mid-Missouri?
If you had to pick one, and there's so many different angles. If I had to pick one, I think it is this growing idea of Columbia being, Branden, a medical destination. Dr. Choi said yesterday, President Choi said that 10,000 isotopes come out of the MURR facility, MURR, the research reactor, which is on South Providence, 10,000 a week. And basically, as the governor said, people are coming in. Obviously, it's people coming here, families and stuff, but a lot of the people coming in now are for medical treatment. They think it will grow even more. So that's kind of even a bigger angle in in something that I think is going to be. It's a lot of money at stake here too.
Yeah, the business, the people, the education, the scientists that come into town, researchers, government, obviously Jefferson City. I mean, it's all right here. And I'm trying to think of it like this because Governor Parson yesterday, he said something to the effect, and I can't remember exactly what his words were in this speech at the new terminal for the Columbia Regional Airport, but something to the effect, you only get one chance to make a first impression.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, I always think every time I'm in that airport, or had been in the past, I'm trying to think of, these important people coming to town for an event. And I know you might laugh and say, well, looks doesn't matter, taxpayer dollar. Well, I'll disagree with you until the end of time. This stuff is important. But I would keep thinking about these people's first impression of Columbia, walking into this airport. And we've always appreciated the free rice cakes, by the way. Love that. And I hope they keep that.
It depends on the flavor. Lately it's been the apple cinnamon, and I want the caramel. When are we bringing the caramel back, please?
So the quote, by the way, was, and you're spot on about it. He said the quote was, "The first impression is a lasting impression." And Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Brad Nessler, Gary Danielson. If we're just looking at sports, the big names, people have no idea. The big name people, Dabo Sweeney's come through here, the big name coaches that have come through here, and the first impression they've got we're going into that basically trailer. That's what it really was. It was built in 19. That said, it served a wonderful purpose and it worked. But this is nicer now because it's literally from 1968.
I really don't care about impressing like people who feel like they should, like important people. I mean, I do care about making a good impression, but I also just care about regular folks being able to get to mid-Missouri easily. And I think that's, you think like, I go all over, and people, when you say you're from Missouri, they're like, Ozark, right? They love Ozark. To be able to fly from New York or from Vegas or wherever to Columbia, Missouri, and have a quick drive to the Lake of the Ozarks, I mean, it's going to bring money to our whole state.
And
That's a good point.
It matters, so I get excited about it because it affects me. I use that airport all the time. Stephanie uses convenience. There's nothing like boarding a 5:00 flight and not having to leave your house at 2:30 in the morning to get to St. Louis and all that. But to your point, like just for besides the people from academia and people from legislative bodies across the country that come here, just for regular folks.
Decided that it's more convenient for me to pick up my relatives who are aging and can't drive as far.
And somebody uses the airport chatting with KOMU.
Well, and even like airlines are confused. Did we see a baggage office yesterday? Because one time I lost my bag and I landed at 11 p.m. back in Columbia, and they said, I'm on the phone with the airline. They're like, well, just go and talk to the person at the baggage office. And I was like,
can't. They're mopping the bathrooms right now.
You've never been here before. I'm like, I don't think there is an office, and there's certainly no one here that's going to answer any of my questions. And so it does when you show up. Like you said, I saw you, and you're like, there are kiosks. And so in front of the desks, you can check in, and there were kiosks at the other ones, but they're just conveniently placed away from the desk where you can check in, just like if you were in a real airport. It feels like a real airport.
Marsh, you remember that excitement you got when you were a little kid and you opened up your first Atari 2600 at Christmas time, and as a little kid you almost vibrated with joy, like, look, Atari 20. That's how I was with Stephanie yesterday when kiosks.
and I was excited though and we asked this yesterday, that they're going to play the Mizzou fight song when the baggage carol starts up, and it brings like a sense of place and a sense of community and a little bit of fun. They also said there's going to be some TVs telling folks more about Columbia, and I love that.
And a storm shelter. I think that's very important because that area down there has had some storms over the years. A restaurant, and that is still they're still working out the details on that. The restaurant is still being worked on, the storm shelter. There's going to be an animal service area. But again, one of the biggest questions that Branden and I at least got was what is going to be done with the current facility, and what they're looking at that is counters for the car rental agencies, and that's where the public safety, basically the security, is going to be for the foreseeable future.
And here's why, I do believe first impressions are important, especially when you're talking about something on a city level, whether you're trying to recruit, who's going to be the next president at Lincoln University or head at Mizzou, or these people that come in, let's say for a job at Hitachi, high-ranging job, or somebody somebody that's coming in from a national conglomerate to check out our area. I think the airport, you get into the airport, it says a lot, because I think back personally in life, how many people that I've met where maybe the relationship wasn't good because of a bad first impression.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the governor said. I mean, he was talking about, he learned that from the military. And Stephanie, I agree with you. It's not so much to impress Nick Saban, Dabo Sweeney. I was using them as example. Gary Danielson, quite frankly, who cares what Gary Danielson thinks? But although I love him, I love him. I think the guy's a great broadcaster. But I mean, the bottom line is, but you do want to impress them because they've, when they're coming through town, you do want to impress them. But it does look good. That said, the current facility has served its purpose. We've had presidents come through there, so many. Bob Hope, 1976, came through there as well.
First impressions. I think about that in my personal life. First people you have met. Have you ever met somebody where your first impression was just not a good first impression and it's been a fruitful relationship?
Now, they got a new website. Do we know? Is the calculator back up on there?
They used to have a calculator. It was, I think, iFlyCOU.com, something like that.
FlyCOU.com.
FlyCOU.com, and you can go in. And so for me, it's easy. It's usually, now it's not been recently, but usually far more cheaper to fly out of Columbia Regional Airport than going to St. Louis or Kansas City. Parking, driving, gallons of gasoline, plus you know how much they pay me an hour here? My time is worth it.
I think there for a while, though, it got a bad, it's a kind of an urban legend, like, oh, it's so expensive. But really, if you haven't looked at it, go do the comparison yourself or get on their website.
874-9390. Timothy, I've got 30 seconds for you, buddy. What's on your mind?
We just flew in from Dominican Republic yesterday to Colombia, and we saw the new one there. It looks good. I agree with both of you. I don't care what people think, because it's not a destination. It's a means to an end of going to Colombia. But I agree, it should be nicer. It's going to be nice, but it's not an end in itself, the airport. It's a means to an end, to go and leave, right?
Timothy, thank you for the phone call. We appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning. You can reach out, call, or text 874-9390. Coming up, 8:10, Attorney General Eric Schmitt and U.S. Senate candidate Eric Schmitt is going to be here at 8:10. Maybe he has some thoughts on this airport and what it means, but mostly it's the economy, stupid. Coming up, 7:25-ish. What's hot with?
Well, you know that I like to casually follow the royal family. Well, they're kind of disappointed in a recent auction that they had. Did you see this? Well, you got all excited about it, so maybe you're excited about the royal family like I am.
Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's
Ooh, it is 7:25.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
See, I knew that you were so excited to talk about the royal family that you would be on time because you were just so excited. You didn't want to wait any longer.
I wanted to get right to it and find out more about the royal family.
So, of course, I casually / not so casually enjoy following the royal family for whatever reason. I know that it's dumb. It's kind of like people's obsession with the Kardashians, I think.
It's kind of like putting your shoes in the freezer.
No,
That's
that
weird.
That's serial killer level weird.
But there was an auction this week in Britain at the British auction house, and they auctioned off pieces of royal family history, basically. There were some pieces from Queen Elizabeth's personal collection. And then randomly, they auctioned off a piece of Diana and Charles' wedding cake from 41 years ago. And the headline of this article says, a piece of Charles and Diana's wedding cake just sold at auction for surprisingly little. What did you expect?
What's the Blue Book value on that?
And I know the pound has taken a tumble lately, but it's come to this. They're deciding they got to sell off some of their royal stuff.
It's not an auction. It was a garage sale, John. They posted in Jefferson City Marketplace on Facebook. We have some 41-year-old cake, if you would like.
The U.S. equivalent of what it sold for was $190. And they were expecting much more than that. I don't know. Who wants a 41-year-old piece of fruitcake?
Well, your wedding's coming up. Are you doing that? Are you going to keep the wedding cake, the topper, and then eat it a year later?
For 1 year, yeah, not 41 years.
What's the difference? 1-year-old cake? No, thank you.
I mean, it's going to be in the freezer. This looks like it's just been sitting in a box in a closet.
What else? So was that the most interesting thing that was sold in this garage sale?
They had auctioned off something from Queen Elizabeth's original coronation back in the 50s. It was a leather-bound program that was kind of cool. But the wedding cake, and not only any wedding cake, apparently it's a royal family tradition that goes back forever, that your wedding cake is a fruit cake.
Oh, that's why it got so little money.
Right?
Cake. Where's the Jim Gaffigan skit on fruitcake? We have to pull that up now. Oh my gosh.
Of all the cakes to serve at your big fancy wedding, fruitcake is not at the top of my list.
What I want to know is the treasurer had his auction a couple weeks ago, and there was Orange County Chopper Pez dispensers. Which got more money, the Orange County Chopper Pez dispensers or 40-year-old royal wedding cake?
My money's on the Pez dispenser.
That is a great question. There was a Seinfeld episode, Elaine's eclectic boss who collected all, Peterman, I think was the guy's name, and bought a piece of wedding cake that was 200 years old from a royal wedding. Elaine didn't know this. She gets into the work fridge and she eats it. She doesn't know. So she tries to replace by buying a $8 Entenmann's cake.
Apparently in 2014... a piece of William and Kate's wedding cake sold for $7,500.
Why?
And that's not even that old. It wasn't aged like this piece was.
It's like keeping your shoes in the freezer.
Quit trying to justify it, man.
Next to the wedding cake. That's weird. Coming up just a few minutes from now. And interesting ways to save money. Baby Bump has a new meeting. And maybe we'll talk COVID vaccinations. Yay.
I think the most disappointing cake has to be fruit cake, you know. You think that would be better. It doesn't add up. Fruit, good. Cake, great. Fruit cake, nasty crap. Have you tried fruit cake? I don't even think that's fruit in there. You're like, what is that, a Skittle? So what is a seed here? What is this, a treasure map? What is the recipe of fruit cake? Anything but fruit? It's like the baker was just clearing off the counter. Put all this crap in there. Nobody eats this stuff. They just mail it to relatives.
Marsh, you ever been gifted a fruit cake? I don't either. It was an interesting, yeah. And I don't know who is. Have you ever met some? Oh, this is my friend John. He's a fruitcake guy. He's a fan. It's something we don't say. But Stephanie was asking, when was the? He's not a fruitcake guy. I get it. I'm wondering. Yeah, when was the last time you were gifted? I don't know that I've ever been gifted a fruitcake. Thank goodness.
I think someone in my life was gifted a fruitcake, such that I've tasted a fruitcake. But yeah, I mean, gross.
And we're talking about this because what's hot with Hannah? Something we do every day, 7:25. It's kind of an interesting story today. Crazy people doing crazy things.
Yeah, the royal family held an auction to auction off some of the, royal family memorabilia, I guess.
Which is crazy to me. Who buys 40-year-old cake from the Royals?
40-year-old fruit cake. Maybe it was just 40-year-old regular cake. I would have put a bid in, but fruit cake, and I'm out.
In bidding on memorabilia anyway, whether it's wedding cake or sports memorabilia, do you want other people's old sweaty foot? No, I have. Patrick, seriously, do you want that stuff?
I don't want anybody's old stuff, no. Not really.
Not even a bathrobe?
Not a bathrobe.
Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. There's Stephanie Bell.
Good morning.
Mr. John Marsh is here. Big fan of the Royals. Producer Hannah is here.
Not the baseball team, but the British Royals, yes.
I, on the other hand, have been a lifelong Royals fan since 2015 when they went to the World Series. Welcome to the show. Glad you could be here. I wanted to get to this piece, Wall Street Journal, something we were talking about earlier, the midterms. Wall Street Journal, what are they saying about the midterms? Well, here's the headline. Republican midterm prospects brighten in closing weeks of election. And they cite polling showed a Democratic lead of about 2 percentage points. Generic ballot. In other words, who would you rather have running things, Republicans or Democrats? Showed a 2%, 2-point lead for Democrats. That has been cut in half. Wall Street Journal goes on to write a surge of good news for Democrats in the summer and early fall, as well as a burst of Democratic engagement in the election after the Supreme Court ended federal abortion rights in June appears to have given way to the factors that traditionally weigh in on the president's party in the midterm election, i.e., it's the economy. Stupid. Wall Street Journal goes on, bottom line, analysts from both parties say as Republicans are increasingly likely to gain well over the net 5 seats needed to take the majority in the House, and control of the 50-50 Senate could still fall to either party. So it's looking good.
You need to stock up on your champagne bottles so we can pop them open late at night is what they're saying, right?
Let's hope.
And your non-alcoholic sparkling juice, too. But I election night, I'm nervous. Are you nervous? And I'm starting to get a little bit excited and imagining what if we take back the Senate and we know about it on election night. Is anyone doing a dance in the studio that night if it happens?
I don't know that there's any worthwhile bets. I mean, in 2016, when Gary Nolan, who hosts the Gary Nolan Show weekday mornings at 9 here on the radio station, the bet he and I made a bet the day of the election, maybe the day before the election. He's like, Hillary's going to win this thing, and I said, no, Trump's going to win, and he didn't. And he, based on polling, which showed that Hillary was going to win this thing easily, he didn't. I said, Gary, if Trump wins, you do a dance on video. You do a jig on video. And I don't know if you've ever seen Gary Nolan. Dude's got presence. Like, he's a tall, big dude. By George, that dude danced the day after the election day, 2016. But I don't know, is there anything worth betting? Or do we bet on, do Republicans take control of the Senate? Maybe that's the big bet.
I think that is.
You want some of that action, Marsh? Yeah. Coming up a little bit later, Eric Schmitt, by the way, our Attorney General, he in U.S. Senate candidate, he's going to be here at 8:10 when I get his thoughts on the economy. My thoughts on it sucks. I mean, I know,
how eloquent.
I know. It's like we were talking to, as a matter of fact, I heard Mark Alford, who's running in the 4th Congressional District. He was on Randy Tobler's show yesterday, and the economy and all these reports and stuff that comes out. My checking account doesn't care about these inflation reports. It's pretty good. Ooh. It just blows me away. We've had a couple of texts about, and this is interesting, and I guess I'm kind of glad it came up. People, somebody'd say, well, are you going to talk about this COVID vaccine stuff? And I don't know what the latest is. And I said, no, because we don't care. I can't even, I don't even remember the last time we've talked about COVID or vaccines.
You don't care because you don't have kids, I think, on this. So yesterday, I guess the CDC came out and there's a recommended list of vaccines for schools. And I guess they want to add the COVID vaccine to that. And I can tell you, yeah, so some states have already passed laws saying like, the COVID vaccine can't be mandated by kids. But like I have really strong opinions about giving the COVID vaccine to my own kids. And yeah, I think if my school said, hey, you're required to give your kid the COVID jab to walk in these doors, I'd say, guess what? I'm your new teacher, kids.
And see, that I do care about. It's COVID and the vaccines and shit. I mean, when was the last time we just don't talk about it, whether it's responsible, irresponsible. When was the last time you're listening right now to Wake Up Mid-Missouri, 742? Thursday morning, 19 days from the election. When was the last time you heard us talk about this stuff? We just don't talk, because I don't think there's any. Hannah, do you have any personal interests in this stuff? It's nothing that's ever come up in the show.
Yeah, I mean,
Marsh. The last time we talked about it is we talked about how you won an award from like the Missouri Health Department for your coverage of it, I think, really. Yeah.
Well, and COVID fatigue was so real for all of us on the show and a lot of Wake Up family members. We would get texts every single day. Why are you guys talking about this?
And now the texts are, how come you guys aren't talking about this? Wait a minute. Over the past 2 years, you would go, and it's the same people usually. You're talking about it too much. You're talking about it too much. And it's the exact same people saying, how come you're not talking about this now?
Yep.
And I don't, it's a nice thing living in Missouri because we do have, we are, controlled by Republicans, and we got reasonable people. And I think if, Eric Schmitt has gone to bat against the school districts and, everyone else on COVID policies. So I think if someone in Missouri got a wild hair and they said suddenly for Missouri schools, you got to have the COVID vax, I just don't think that's going to fly. So that's why I'm not really worried about it. That's why, I understand if you live in a jurisdiction controlled by Democrats or people who are still wearing masks, I would be freaking out. But I don't have that concern here. And I think really that's why, we're talking about the economy and inflation. And as I think about that, that's one thing that, we can't insulate ourselves from that. We can't move away from that. And that's why I think it's going to dominate the election, because when everyone else was really concerned about COVID, we said, hey, we're going to the Lake of the Ozarks this weekend. You want to, I was in.
You want to go with us?
Well, we could make our own decisions, and we could really insulate our, it was a really state by state, and even sometimes, county by county, and you could kind of control your situation. And I feel like, here with the economy and everything Joe Biden's done, I feel helpless because it permeates every county, every city. And the only thing we can do is get new leadership and get new policies to get around that.
And let's remember what Biden just said like 48 hours ago.
Days away from the most consequential election in our history.
It's the most consequential election in our lifetime. By the way, I think we should do a listener mailbag coming up like at about 5-6 minutes from now. We're getting some good texts regarding fruitcakes, shoes in the freezer, and a whole slew of other things.
How about deodorant? Is there
deodorant? We might open up the Wake Up Mid-Missouri mailbag. You seeing some of this stuff in here, Marsh? We've got some good ones. Yeah. And here's with the COVID stuff, and when I say I don't care, like when I go, especially there's a Schnucks in Columbia, and it's the one it's on Forum in your stadium, and it's like the most wokest grocery store in all of mid-Missouri. You know, they all have the shirts, you know, and racism and love rules, and which that's fine, that's great. But the number of people in there that still wear masks, and I try to seek first to understand. Maybe you have a weakened immune system, whatever it is. I don't know that I ever recall you wearing masks prior to the spring of 2020.
But if you have a weakened immune system, then why would you not use grocery delivery? Why would you wander around the store in a mask? I don't understand.
And here's my judginess. I'm not going, man, that person's an idiot. Here's what I say. I'm like, man, national news outlets got to those people.
Yeah.
Scared the heck out of them. They scared them, and they're still afraid. And I feel bad for them because they have that fear. It worked. It scared these people into submission. So that's kind of my judgy take on it. When I see people still wearing masks or still worried, and now we got to get the monkeypox vaccine. There's several monkeypox vaccination clinics in Columbia over the next few days. Like, here's the latest thing they're trying to scare you with. Let's celebrate by all of a sudden gas prices are going to go down because guess what? That strategic oil reserve, it's pretty strategic to release some oil whenever your ass is losing the midterms, which is happening to the Democrats. So let's do that, and let's find something new to scare people with again. How about monkeypox?
Strategery.
Strategery. See, it's the strategery in this. All right, let's do this. Coming up 5 minutes from now, let's do the Wake Up Mid-Missouri listener mailbag. I love this. We've got some good ones in here. You can include stuff. You want to be included in the mailbag, send us a text, 874-9390, then USA.
somebody who's prepared to front up. I'm prepared to take the tough decisions.
That's Liz Truss. I'm prepared to front up. I'm prepared to do all this stuff. I'm prepared to stay in power, she said less than 24 hours ago.
And now she's resigning. She will be the shortest-serving prime minister in British history. She's announced that she intends to resign after just 45 days.
Well, that didn't take long. It's taken a lot of Democrats here 2 years to figure out, man, Biden was really a crappy choice for president. 45 days in the U. Yeah, that's not good.
She was kind of dealt a bad hand. I mean, it wasn't great when she got in, and then I think she was in like a couple days before the Queen died. But really what tanked her was she had put forward this tax plan, and I think it had two different provisions, maybe like a corporate and some other thing, with a cabinet member. Two cabinet members, or I don't know what they call them, but two high-ranking officials in her administration have already said, see you later. And people in her own party were calling for her, saying, hey, you need to go too. But I guess her tax plan really spun their economy down the drain, made it even worse, which is in 45 days.
Not bad. It's
hard to do.
Pretty impressive.
And so I think, at that point, someone's got to take one for the team, and she's going to resign.
Letters. I get letters.
We don't get any letters. We get texts.
So many letters.
Facebook messages.
A whole bunch of letters.
Emails, too.
I'd even read mail from a cow.
Of course, you find everybody on their socials. Twitter, at Stephanie S. Bell, at Rathert Branden. Producer, Hannah, what's your Twitter handle?
Producer_Hannah.
Producer_Hannah. Marsh, what's the one for KWOS? All right, we've got one for the Eagle, too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
I was giggling because the way that Marsh said the KWOS Twitter handle made me think of the time you asked me, Hannah, does everyone's Twitter handle have to start with an @ sign?
Yeah. No. That's a question. I asked. Shows you where I am. I am on Twitter. Stephanie's a really good follow, too. All right, so listener mailbag, 874-9390. 874-9390. Start with one from Sean talking about vaccination. CDC coming out saying, hey, now kids as young as 5 should get them. By the way, there was also a great story in USA Today talking about how educators across the country have had to ask for like $300 billion in funds to help, or maybe it was $3 billion in funds to help kids that are now well behind with test scores, now developmentally behind to where they're supposed to be. And there were a bunch of folks that said, listen, you talked about something 2 years ago. It's not going to affect kids that much, and you're doing more harm. Your solution is going to do more harm than good, and now we're seeing that. Sean says, I guess you're over it, but when you have kids and you would move you and your family, quit your job, etc., to avoid this shot, it's a big deal, and I live in Columbia, so my confidence on the people being reasonable is low. I'm assuming school district, has made questionable decisions before. It says, I don't want to hear about it either, but we are screwed if we forget what was done in the name of COVID. And I agree with all of that. And I agree with what happened in the city of Columbia. Remember, COVID didn't shut these businesses down. It was people in important positions, most of them not even elected. It was people that were appointed to positions that put people out of business, that damaged these things. Sean, I sense a little bit of your pain. And you, as a mom, something you relate to.
Yeah, I have strong opinions about vaccinations and about parental choice over, what vaccines your kids get. And so, yeah, if my school, I don't have that concern in Southern Boone. I think we would have a revolution if suddenly they said, hey, you got to vax your kid with a COVID vax before you get in. And I think, yeah, I would walk away. I would be my kid's teacher.
Here's what I love when they look at percentages, and here's the percentage of people that got the first shot. Here's the percentage of people that got the second shot, and here's the people who got and you can just see by the number of people that are getting.
And I'm not dogging on anyone who chooses to get the shot, or if you have an immunocompromised kid and you do the risk assessment as a parent and you choose to do it. But yeah, I don't think a mandate's going to fly in Missouri. I understand his concerns that if I was in the city of Columbia, but again, we have the backstop of our Attorney General, who has not hesitated to go to bat for parents' rights against school districts. So.
And as a matter of fact, our Attorney General, Eric Schmitt, is going to be here at 8:10 this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And I wonder, for me personally, if the other thing is, too, I haven't tested positive for COVID. It's those superior Rathert genes.
That's because you refused to test. I had it.
I say I don't.
Hannah's had it, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Marsha's had
But then
it.
I feel kind of superhuman after I had it because I'm like, I'm good to go for 6
Got
months.
all these antibodies.
Coming up, Attorney General Eric. Oh, by the way, also in the listener mailbag, Tara says her mom makes a mean fruit cake. Tara, thank you for that. We appreciate it. Attorney General, U.S. Senate candidate Eric Schmitt is here at 8:10.
There's a lot of improvements that you're going to see over the old terminal. The old terminal is 16,000 square feet. You're going to see a 52,000 square foot facility in the new terminal. Some of the benefits of the new terminal, of course, is not just ADA accessible terminal, but it's also an ADA friendly terminal. We have additional parking with 93 spaces added. Maybe one of the biggest ones that everybody's going to really like is passenger boarding bridges. Are installed on the new terminal. So no more walking outside in the rain and snow.
Listen, I'll tell you this event, and so we already knew this. The event that went down yesterday, Columbia Regional Airport, this is a big deal for our community, and it was a ceremony to celebrate something that's going to be happening next week is officially when it opens, but cannot stress enough how important this is for mid-Missouri. We had basically what was just kind of an old building on wheels out in the middle of a field in Ashland, Missouri. I think it's the way the airport was viewed and what we have now. It is incredible. And you had people like even Governor Mike Parson showing up at this event, Jefferson City Mayor Carrie Turgeon. What I really thought was cool, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler was there, but to see several generations of mayors that were there. Bob McDavid, former mayor, he was the mayor prior to Brian Treese being mayor. Brian Treese was there. State Rep Cherie Olson-Reich, Connie Leopard, Boone County presiding commissioner candidate was there, as was Kip Kendrick. Dan Atwell, current presiding commissioner. He was there. So it was just remarkable to see all these people from across the area. And I knew that this was, this is kind of a big deal, and it matters whether it's convenience. And I don't know if you've ever had the opportunity to check out and actually do the math on flying out of the Columbia Regional Airport. I usually fly out of there. Thanksgiving, I'm actually flying out of St. Louis. Prices have changed a little bit. I just got to be honest there. But otherwise, yeah, it is always has been financially an easy do compared to flying out of St. Louis. Time, gas money, parking still free, Columbia Regional Airport. So I thought it was great. And I'm guesstimating, I was standing back by the stage, I'm thinking like 300 people were on hand, which shocked me. That's just my estimation. I don't know how many were actually there.
Brandon, I agree. And it's very hard. I know some people always want an exact amount. The problem is that there were people lined up out the door. Mm-hmm. I think if anything, your 300 number, if anything, maybe a little low, because there were people standing outside. I saw them down way down the hall as well. There was a whole other stand down there. Former state representative Kip Kendrick and I, and he was not that far from me, but there were a lot of us who were actually way, way back in the back because just of, there was such a crowd that was there. But it was, this is just a guesstimate on my part, at least 300,
yep.
At least.
It was just impressive. And to see all the people, even over the years and people behind the scenes, you had representatives from American Airlines out there. DeCarlin Seawood, current city manager for the city of Columbia. That was just a cool event. Next week is when it officially opens up. Good morning. Welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. That is Mr. Brian Hounsworth.
Great to see you, and good to see you yesterday, too, my friend.
John Marsh is here. There's Stephanie Bell. Producer Hannah also here. We're going to be joined shortly by Attorney General Eric Schmitt. I want to mention this first funny thing today. So John Fetterman, running for Senate, Pennsylvania against Dr. Mehmet Oz, had a stroke. That's not funny. What is funny is that people still thinking he would be a good candidate in office. Joe Biden is going to campaign. Remember, Joe Biden, the guy, how many high-profile Democrats, Stacey Abrams, Mark Kelly, how many high-profile Democrats have spurned Joe's advances? Separate.
Quite a few, yeah. They find other things to do that day, magically.
So think about this. The purpose of Joe Biden going to Pennsylvania today is to not just campaign for John Fetterman. What the White House is telling us this morning, he's going to show everybody, see, he's fine. His cognitive abilities are fine. Joe Biden is the one who's going to vouch for him. That would be like trying to get a young drunk vouch for another drunk. He's fine to drive. He's just a little buzzed. It just doesn't work that way. Attorney General Eric Schmitt, U.S. Senate candidate, joining us now here on the show. I mean, seriously, before we talk about things that are affecting us here in Missouri, Mr. Schmitt, this is just mind-numbing, but I think another example, man, these progressives, they don't get... They're sending one guy who has his cognitive abilities completely diminished to go back another guy who, because of a stroke, his cognitive abilities diminished. This is astounding.
Well, they're both a disaster. By the way, I wish Joe Biden would come into Missouri and campaign for my opponent. Bring in Joe. That'd be great. But I don't think he thinks Missouri's competitive. Otherwise, he would. But no, look, this agenda that Joe Biden over the last 2 years has had with the Democrats has been a unmitigated disaster. And people know it, and that's why a reckoning is coming, and I think he's trying to salvage it because he's always talking about Scranton. But hopefully the people of Pennsylvania, want to change in direction in this country. I know the people in Missouri do as I get around the state. That's what you hear a lot.
All right. Eric Schmitt running for Senate. He's joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
General Schmitt, thank you so much for your time. There is an ad that I have seen, at least here in Mid-Missouri, in Columbia and Jefferson City on television stations. It's run over and over again. And the ad is called Un-American. And basically it says that you voted not once but twice to allow to buy up to China, to allow basically them to purchase up to 150,000 acres of Missouri farmland. In fact, your opponent says that you basically are only in it for yourself. That's an exact quote from her. Two-part question. Is that ad correct? They're saying you voted to allow the Chinese to buy up to 150,000 acres of Missouri farmland, A, and B, your reaction to her saying that you have shown over and over again that you're willing to sell Missouri out to the highest bidder. She said that.
Well, first of all, that's not true. The ad's not true. It's a total misrepresentation of my record. And I think it's being done for a couple of reasons. One, to distract voters from her position. She has signed on to the Green New Deal, which would ship our jobs to China. It would be a disaster for American energy production and for jobs. And so she has totally signed on to that agenda. Secondly, she also knows that nobody's going to be tougher on China than me. I was the first attorney general in the country to sue China for unleashing the coronavirus on the world. And as far as her second assertion, I mean, look, this race is pretty simple when you break it down. It's a contrast in backgrounds, and it's a contrast in beliefs. First of all, she's an heiress who's never worked a day in her life. She's entitled, and she believes that she can buy a United States Senate seat. And she's pouring millions and millions of dollars of her own money into this race because nobody else will support her. And she's trying to buy a seat. And, she's an heiress from the Anheuser-Busch fortune. My dad worked 7 days a week in the midnight shift at Anheuser-Busch. In college, I gave tours and took out the trash at the estate that she grew up on. And the media hates this narrative, by the way, because you've got somebody who has blue-collar roots fighting on behalf of working families against somebody who's completely out of touch, limousine liberal. That's the truth. And secondly, by way of policy distinctions, she has signed on. Look, she's running her campaign. She is running as the 51st vote for the Biden agenda. And as far as I'm concerned, in Missouri, that dog won't hunt because people do not like what's happening. They don't like paying 36% more for ground beef. They don't like the sticker shock they have every time they go to the grocery store. Winter is coming. Utility rates are going to be through the roof. The bills are going to be through the roof as people turn their furnaces on. And it's all a direct result of this Biden agenda. She has also said she'll eliminate the filibuster, willing to pack the court.
Well, let's talk.
They can add states. So she's completely out of touch, and I think Missourians recognize that.
Yeah, let's talk about issues important to Missourians here at Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We've talked to our local law enforcement about fentanyl and the deaths that we're seeing right here in Columbia, and we know that it's coming over the border. What can be done there?
Well, we have to secure our border, and nobody's been tougher in fighting this important fight than I have. Under President Trump, we had a secure border. We had the Remain in Mexico policy was effective. Joe Biden tried to eliminate that on day one. We took him to court and won. Now they're trying to backtrack on that. Title 42, which accounts for 50% of all the expulsions at the border, that was Missouri that filed a lawsuit to keep that in place. If you think it's bad now, double it. That's how important that case was. And we've got to finish President Trump's wall. But I've been to the border twice. The heiress Valentine lives in a gated community. She's not affected by violent crime at all. But the amount of crime that's coming across the border, the amount of fentanyl that's coming across the border, the amount of human trafficking, $100 million a week is the economic value of the human trafficking alone. We've got to do something about it, and I'm fighting that fight. She has no plan for this. She's okay with what Joe Biden has done. It's been completely on purpose. And by the way, I'll point out, I'm the only candidate in this race that's been endorsed by law enforcement. She's weak on crime. It's not affected by it. The Fraternal Order of Police has supported me. Sheriffs, across the state have supported me. The firefighters have supported me, and I'm proud of that support.
Eric Schmitt, Attorney General, State of Missouri and U.S. Senate candidate, joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and 104.5 News Radio 950 KWOS.
I support any progress that can be made in lowering people's taxes. I remember when I came into the state Senate, my top priority, one of them was to cut income taxes. And I looked around, and there were fellow Republicans who were like, "Hey, we're not going to do that." But I think the pendulum has swung. People understand it's very important to allow people to keep more of their own money. I'd like to see them continue that. But certainly that was really positive progress, because I think working folks need that kind of relief, because the cost of everything has gone up dramatically because of the Biden administration. And I want to go to Washington and continue that fight in D.C., but certainly at the state level, I'm encouraged by the progress.
All right. Marissa Hagler says, by the way, please pass on to the Attorney General how much he was appreciated during COVID for fighting for Columbia public school students and the some 20,000 roughly parents in the district. And I got to tell you before we let you go here, man, you sound as amped up as I've heard you sound very passionate about this. One of the things I think that we've always appreciated about you is you're talking about this race, and some of the things that you're saying is untrue that's being said from the other side of the aisle in this campaign. I hear you getting worked up, man. You sound incredibly passionate about this. I hope you continue to take that with you. And I don't know if you had a chance. I know you were hanging out with Ted Cruz. I don't know if you had a chance to hear him talking about you on our show last week when U.S. Senator Ted Cruz was here on your behalf. Did you hear what he said about you?
I did not.
It was all good.
Good. I thought you had some surprise there for me, but no.
That's the October surprise. Did you hear what Ted Cruz said about Schmitt?
Listen, we need more fighters, and I appreciate the comment from the Columbia parent, because I think a lot of people in the state, a lot of our volunteers have come from those parents who were glad there was somebody that stuck up for them during COVID when their kids were being forced to wear masks all day long while the adults were partying at football games. So there's a lot on the line in this race. I am fired up. There's, 18 days left, and we've got a country to save, and I believe that with all my heart, and I think the people of the state understand that too.
Anything else you'd like to add before we let you go, Mr. Schmitt?
If they want to help, they can text Schmitt to 30409. That's a great way to get involved in our race. Remember to get out and vote. It's a 50-50 Senate. Everything's on the line, and the path of majority for Republicans, changing the direction of this country begins on November 8th. And it's not good enough just to get the majority. We got to do something with it. That's certainly been my record as a fighter, and I'm going to take that fight to D.C.
You can help right now. Schmitt, text Schmitt 30409. We appreciate your time here on the show this morning, Mr. Eric Schmitt, our Attorney General in the state of Missouri, U.S. Senate candidate. Coming up, Morning Bell, business news. Man, he was passionate. He was on fire.
He's fired up. I'd be fired up too if people were out there saying untrue things about me. And I mean, it feels like this election is the most important election of our lifetime. And you hate to say it, but there's a lot on the line.
Well, I appreciate what he said, and I'm guessing in politics it's different. I'm one of those. I firmly believe it's none of my business what you think about me. I don't care what people say about me, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. It's just not my business what you think about me. That doesn't parlay into politics, though. It doesn't work that way.
No.
Coming up, Morning Bell business news. Little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. What do you have for us this morning, Steph?
Well, we were talking about old wedding cake earlier, and apparently this Saturday is the most popular
Good morning, 8:26, time for the Morning Bell business news with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
I saw this, and because we have a Wake Up Columbia family member, or Wake Up, sorry, I owe everyone a pizza. Dang it. Mid-Missouri.
We had a bet. Actually, I think you're one of the last ones to do it when we revolutionized the name of our show from Wake Up Columbia to Wake Up Mid-Missouri. We said first one who says Wake Up Columbia has to buy pizza. I think we nailed Brian for 4 pizzas. I think I did it once. Marsh, have we busted you? Yeah, I don't think you've done it. Hannah?
I haven't done it.
All right, me, Steph, and Houseworth.
Pizza party in our future. Well, I was surprised to see that this Saturday is the year's most popular wedding date. I don't have any weddings this weekend. Anybody else? We were all doing weddings there for a minute.
There's probably a lot. I have a lot of weddings this weekend that I was not invited to, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I guess there's a show called Marriage or Mortgage, and they're just talking about how expensive weddings are getting. And I remember years ago when I got married, almost 15 years ago, how expensive it was. They're saying the average cost, and then you think inflation on top of that, average cost of a wedding in 2021 was $28,000, and most newlyweds are incurring debt, borrowing an average of $11,000 just to pay for their wedding.
Hannah, have you kept a running tally? And if so, are you comfortable to kind of share where you're going with that, where you are?
You can see from her frowny face.
It's a lot.
Thank goodness you don't have to pay back that $10,000 in student loan debt is what we're saying.
It's
a lot of money.
It's not good. And
Yeah.
I think, a lot of people are having to make that choice. Like, do I just have a smaller wedding? Do I pare back? Do I, and parents too, you want to help out folks. And I know for me, my parents helped me pay for my wedding. My sister's not married yet. And she said, hey, I really want to buy a house. That money that you might be spending on a wedding, I'd rather have it for a house. And she did. She bought a house, and, if and when she gets married, I don't know how she's going to, maybe she has to pay for it herself, but it's incredible how expensive these things are becoming, and I think it's a bad choice to put this on a credit card.
Yeah. And, of course, and I'm a 51-year-old fuddy-duddy, and I admit that. And, but I'd be like, and I've already done it a couple of times. If it were me,
I'd run away at this point.
Yeah.
I loved the idea that I had a big traditional wedding, but looking back on it, I would have rather had that cash in the bank, I think.
Coming up just a few minutes from now here on the show, we're going to be looking at some ways that you can save money kind of in creative ways. And by the way, several opportunities for you to bump into members of the show here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing. It's kind of cool. We'll do that coming up 5 minutes from now.
Not everybody's going to want to save all of them, and that's okay too. We just need to make sure that we put forth the best effort of allowing people to save them if they want to.
I think as much as possible the building should be saved. The history of the street gives it a lot of character. You think about what's come before you. You see architectural details that you're not going to see anywhere else.
That's some folks at KOMU we're talking to regarding the Capitol Avenue buildings. You've got one person saying, listen, I don't think people care about the architecture. They don't care what's there. Some of them, we got to come down. The other person saying people come by and they can look at the history of the building. Are the Capitol Avenue buildings to Jefferson City what Roll Carts has been to Columbia? Just this never-ending issue with no solution, Steph?
Yeah, pretty much.
Marsh? Like the roll carts. He's been there for a while, maybe no solution. And so I did think it was interesting. Jefferson City News Tribune wrote a nice piece. I like it, because they were agreeing with what I was saying. But I thought what happened at the Jefferson City Council meeting this week, where you had specifically somebody like Mr. Fitzwater, City Councilman Fitzwater, who will be running for mayor, saying, hey, we should have listened better on this issue as it relates to the compost pile. We should have listened better. Jefferson City News Tribune doing a nice piece on that. Good morning. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up, Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell, what are you doing tonight?
I am headed back to Truman State University in Kirksville. They invited me back they're celebrating women entrepreneurs. It's like Women Entrepreneurship Month. So I'll be there with a panel of some other women talking to young students, probably mostly women, about running businesses.
And here's, because we know how you feel about college student loan forgiveness, and I think this is a great opportunity because you have a captive audience. You have a bunch of young women who want to learn from Stephanie Bell about entrepreneurship, and you can still get in your digs. Hey, you know that $10,000 to $20,000 you're not going to have to pay back because of Joe. You can take that money that you are going, because I know you were already planning, right, on paying that student loan back, but now you can take that money, start a business, and that way you can still work in your...
It's in there, and actually what's in there is a dig at Truman State University, and I love them, and they know this, and I brought this up to their administration. I said, you didn't prepare me quite to leave and manage my personal finances, and I wasn't in a position for the first 10 years of my career where I could have walked away from a 9-to-5, where I could have taken any risks because I was under the burden of all the student loans. And so that's in there, especially for young women. I said, if you have a partner, you can't go to your partner if you have $50,000 in debt and say, hey, honey, I think I want to quit my job. That's a different conversation than if you have some money in savings and if you don't have any debt. And so if entrepreneurship is your goal, managing your personal finances really early on could give you a head start.
And we're today we're reading to elementary kids. Where exactly are we going today to go reading?
Do you ask because you want me to tell you?
I know we're reading. I know it's in Jefferson City. But I ain't all up on the details just yet.
We are going to East Elementary today in Jeff City.
Do we know like what grades we're reading to?
Elementary kids.
He's wondering how hard the books are going to be.
I was just thinking there was, we talk about books that shouldn't be in libraries. We're school libraries, and they are. Seriously. What if I showed up in a classroom with one of those books from a library? And I'm not saying it happens in Jefferson City. I think they're pretty tight on their stuff. But I could bring some books from Columbia's. Here, kids, here's what we're going to do today.
Yikes.
We're going to read some real offensive books and tell you how you should think and feel about certain things, courtesy of the Columbia School District. Let's start here.
No.
With this book. It's called, Look, Timmy Cops a Feel. All right.
Oh, sheesh. I mean, kids but they treat their teachers and the folks at school like it's the gospel. I mean, they're so influenced. My kids came home yesterday night and they said, tomorrow's flu vaccine day. They were like all excited about it. And I'm like, why is the school pushing the flu vaccine on I don't get the flu vaccine. Why are we talking about it? Why are we celebrating it like a holiday? My kids are going to grow up thinking vaccines are cool. And I was offended by the fact that they seemed to be very excited about the vaccine day. As far as books go, one day my kid came home last year and said, hey, we've been reading all about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I'm like, did you do any reading about Sandra Day O'Connor?
Amen.
And so these things matter.
Yep, they absolutely they do matter, and these what's happening in the schools. So feel better knowing that Wake Up Mid-Missouri is in a local elementary school this morning. Go in confidence today. We're going to modify the curriculum a little bit. Marsh, you going to come along today, or are you doing news stuff? Yeah, he's got news stuff too. And what time, Hannah?
1:00.
1:00. And I have an affinity for this stuff because that's how we found Hannah. We plucked her from a school in Centralia.
Not an elementary school.
Who is Hannah was listening in class to one. I had rented a school the day before, and I got to admit, I was like, no, they want like Cosmo from our top 40 station. It was a bunch of second graders. Cosmo, who does mornings on our sister's top 40 station, Y107. I was like, oh, they want Cosmo. They want somebody like, Aaron, whatever. And we get there, and I still put on the smiley face, but these kids they knew everything the show did. We were talking about it the next day about young people listening, and this 16-year-old kid calls. She says, yeah, I'm actually in class right now, but I listen to you guys all the time. And it was producer Hannah.
It was.
A long time ago.
Awesome. That was great radio, and great job.
And there's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
It's good to see you. Two very quick things. Number one, Stephanie, hope you have a good time in Kirksville. Pancake City was my favorite place up there in Kirk. I don't even know if it's still there.
It is. I'm pretty sure.
It was wonderful. Many times I do games up there. And the other observation from this morning is Eric Schmitt, he took the gloves off there in that interview when I asked him about, absolutely. But obviously he did not care for, and of course I have an obligation to ask. I don't think he objected to the question, but it has to be asked. He's disputing what's in that television ad, but I don't know if people have noticed it. That ad is running on at least the 10 o'clock newscast on all three of the local TV stations. Trudy Bush Valentine is wearing a vest. I'm looking at it. It's a vest. She's got a horse farm behind her. I don't know if that ad is running in the cities, but certainly it's running here and clearly trying to get rural votes. But he disputed what's in there, saying it was misleading, but then came out and really took her to task. So we'll see. We'll see if that ad is effective or not here in this area.
And I think you had left while we were still chatting with Eric, but I even said to him, I'm like, man, you sound like you're pretty passionate today. And that's one of the things personally in my dealings with him that I've always known about him, this passion and the silliness with the Columbia Public School District. And I think that's why ideally he's going to win. And that's why if you're undecided on that Senate race between Trudy Bush Valentine or Eric Schmitt, it's easy. It's Eric Schmitt, because you heard that on this show. It wasn't just, the talking points, and he was passionate. Like, he was for real. That's not fake stuff. Like,
my favorite was Mark McCloskey, which I think he would laugh about now too. Yeah. But remember his first ad? He was like in front of the John Deere and his shirt was unbuttoned just a little bit, and everyone's like, "Dude, we saw your house. Everyone in America knows you live in a mansion, not on a farm." But it's a thing. Right.
What else is going? Oh, and then we're at homecoming. We're doing our Tiger tailgates. We do this every home game for Mizzou. A couple of hours prior to the game, free tailgate, man, free food, free drink. Thanks to Buffalo Wild Wings, Culligan of Mid-Missouri, Bud Light, and Hard Noon Seltzers. You go to our websites, 939theeagle.com or kwos.com, and you can go to places like Club Car Wash in Columbia, in Jefferson City. You can go to Speedy Bees. You can also go pretty much any Speedy Bees, whether you're in New Bloomfield, Holt Summit, St. Thomas, pretty much wherever. You can go to those, and they're free. And then come join us Saturday. Stephanie and I are going to be emceeing the homecoming parade, and specifically we're going to be in downtown. We're
going to be on Broadway between 8th and 9th. I looked it up.
So right there, kind of close to City Hall.
Right.
Broadway, 8th and 9th. We'll be emceeing the parade. And then Marsh's going to hang out with us at the Tiger Tailgate for homecoming weekend. And ZOU. Do we know? I was looking at the thing. They've got a really nice, hey, here's some of the things coming up for the week. And they are doing something kind of interesting, like a sensory area where they're asking parade participants like to turn down the music, don't do sirens and stuff for kids that get. I don't know whether
parades can be really loud. Really loud.
And a lot of things happen. People are throwing candy at you, and there's music, and there's sirens, and there's cheerleaders, and there's horses, and and a politician trying to come and shake my hand while I'm trying to grab some jujubes, man. Come on.
Didn't they say that at the airport yesterday too? They're going to have kind of like a quiet room, not only for mothers but also for kids. And before you were just kind of all in one room, and it was all there, and you were thrown into the mix. I kind of like that idea.
It's the other thing I love about the new terminal at the Columbia Regional, like its seats, you have some room. Because whenever you would wait for a flight before in the old terminal, like you felt like you were in a classroom, like a Billy Madison desk. It was an Adam Sandler movie. But do they still, and I'm just asking, I'm not trying to start much because we got to get into the Gary Nolan show, maybe get some leftovers. But do they still, homecoming royalty, do they do the homecoming king and queen, or did they do away with that?
I'm pretty sure there's a king and a queen.
Do they call them king and a queen, or have they? I'm just asking, Marge.
I think so.
Yeah. I'm just wondering. I'm not,
They say top 10 candidates, homecoming royalty. Maybe we don't call them kings and queens anymore.
Maybe we've changed it, which would be a shame. Coming up, we're going to do some leftovers. You think you got some stuff there in your fridge, John? All right, you got some stuff, Steph?
Oh, yeah.
Hannah, anything in your refrigerator for leftovers?
I don't know.
Guy went through it all?
Maybe.
Good. All right, we'll do some leftovers before we get into the Gary Nolan show. It's my dad's favorite show, Gary Nolan.
Here's a big old serving of leftovers. Enjoy.
All right, some things we didn't get time to get to during the show today. Just kind of a quick little interesting piece. Lincoln University saw an uptick in enrollment numbers. First time in I think 5 or 6 years. So that's good. Anytime you bring more people to Mid-Missouri, it's more money. They're spending those things. That's a little bit of what's in leftovers before we get into the Gary Nolan show coming up here a little bit after 9 o'clock. What's in your fridge, Steph?
Well, apparently Missouri has its own fire festival. Do you remember that documentary?
So Fire Festival is FYRE. It was some supposed to be like the music festival to end all music festivals, and it was going to be in
an island or something,
like the Bahamas or something like that. And they sold all these. It was like one of the worst frauds of all time perpetrated, especially as it relates to concert venues.
Yeah, people had invested a whole bunch of money, bought tickets, and then it turned out to all be a farce. Well, apparently the Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmitt, who joined us earlier on the show, is looking into investigating this Lake Ozark Music Festival. And folks have been complaining. He handles consumer complaints, and some folks who were going to be vendors. You got all sorts of people that when there's a big event, they pay for a booth to, sell their wares or food. And their people said, hey, I paid to go to this festival, and then it's not happening. And then there were other people who had purchased tickets and said, hey, there's a weird 800 number that they have text messages. They were texting, and the people are like, yeah, you should have gotten your refund by now. Anyway, it's apparently enough of a deal that the Attorney General is looking into it. Maybe we'll get our own Missouri Fire Festival documentary.
And one thing I recall, and I thought part of one of the passes you could buy for the Fire Festival, it was free food or something, they were handing out grilled cheese, a grilled cheese sandwich in a little plastic baggie that your mom would have given you when you were 5 years old on your way into the first grade.
I've been to one of those festivals before. They were like, oh, you got VIP fancy bathrooms, and there's just water pouring out of a upgraded porta potty. You're like, what did I pay for again? Hold on.
Off the text 874-9390. Apparently, according to this listener, multi-car wreck on eastbound lanes 54 headed out of Jefferson City onto the Missouri River Bridge. Multi-car wreck eastbound lanes 54 heading out of Jeff City into the Missouri River Bridge. If you're in that area, maybe give us a buzz real quick. Let us know what you're seeing so that we can help out the people. Marsh, what's in your fridge this morning? I hate to laugh because, I love my law enforcement. I support my sister, who is a police chief here in Missouri. I sport my Back the Blue bracelet. Was chatting with Ashland Police Chief Gabe Edwards yesterday, and I felt bad. I'm standing next to this guy, and he goes, Branden Rathert, how you doing? And I said, I'm good. Have we met before? He says, yeah, Gabe Edwards, Ashland. I said, I'm sorry. Yeah. I said, you look good. You've lost some weight. I didn't recognize him. I thought he looked good. So this story, this woman, so I don't mean to laugh because it involves law enforcement, but kind of creative. So what did this woman do exactly? She getting arrested and she just happened to have access to a beehive? Oh, gosh. So it's not funny, but it's creative? Is that more fair? I don't want to offend our friends in local law enforcement. Gosh.
Have you heard? Oh, well, that's good. Even the person that was allergic, that could be scary stuff. Have you heard about a baby bump?
Yes.
Not like the baby bump belly.
Yeah.
A different kind of baby bump.
Yeah, doesn't it happen sometimes? New York City, famously, I thought back in the early 70s, had a massive power outage, and it lasted hours. And 9 months to the day after that power outage, a lot of kids was born or something like that. Like that?
Yeah, like that. Apparently, the pandemic has created a baby bump. And as you know, our population's been declining. People are having fewer and fewer kids. So the graph has been really consistent, but...
Boom!
But people drank a lot, and they stayed at home a lot, and they were really bored. And so the graph is out. And there was not a boom, but a bump.
So more babies being born since the spring of 2020. I always think because there were a lot of people, married couples staying home, and two things happened.
There were a lot of divorces.
You either got divorced or you had kids. There was no in between, apparently, John. It was just. Got the bump, the baby bump. All right. Tomorrow we are going to be celebrating a Feel Good Friday on the show. We are picking winners and losers of the week. We'll do that at 8:35. Plus, we're going to be wearing red to remember everyone deployed. Guess what? Gary Nolan Show is coming up next. See ya.
Bye.